Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Welcome to our Tuesday Night Live, and just going to warn you all right now, this is this show is going to be kind of unadulterated here. Sitting next to one of our agents here, team leader, the Mark A. Ritter.
Yes, sir.
And associates team here at Sachs Realty. So this is a real honor and a treat tonight. He does have a YouTube channel as well. We put his channel in the comments section, or the notes in the show notes. And I'm with none other than our Florida Rebel real estate broker, Phil Simonetta. And some people call me up and they want to say his name is Phil Simonetti. Are you going to have that Simonetti guy back on? So welcome, gents. Mark.
Yes, sir. Good evening to you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Let's get it.
We've been together all day, actually.
Yes, we have.
All right, tell everybody a little bit about you and what you're up to nowadays.
Born and raised in Baltimore. Again, my name is Mark A. Ritter with the Maryland Housing Market. Born and raised in Baltimore, and been involved in real estate for the last 30 years. Majority of that time was spent on the mortgage banking side. Led my own nationwide mortgage banking firm, title company. Came on this side of the world as far as a realtor about 8 years ago, and just found that passion once again, and was fortunately, had the opportunity of joining you over the last, 30, 60 days, and grateful, excited.
Yeah, you called me because of watching me on YouTube. You're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. We had our own channel and just looking for ways to go out there on the social media and build that platform, and saw what you were doing. I'm like, right in my own backyard, 5 minutes from my house. And I saw some of the things that you were doing, 150,000 subscribers, 24 million views. And I'm like, what is going on here? I got.
Well, we don't have a lot of agents. That's what's going on. That's a good thing. I
saw that opportunity. I saw that opportunity.
We tell most of them no.
Yeah. Well, I
we
saw
get calls all the time, but we tell them it's not a good fit, but we're glad to have you. Phil, man. Tell everybody who you are that doesn't know. By the way, our last video, 600,000 views, man. You crushed it.
Powerful, man. Yeah, Philip Simonetta. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, is where our headquarters is. I have the Pier 21 Realty, and I also own the Florida Real Estate School by Pier 21 Realty. So we actually have a real estate school and brokerage here in Florida. And I'm also licensed in Tennessee and North Carolina when it comes to brokering. That's my background in real estate, and I also own a pizza business. We have a couple pizza businesses. I'm invested in some cigar bars, nightclubs, and I've been in real estate since I was 19. Long time.
Philly boy.
Yep, from Philly.
There you go.
Now we're talking pizza.
Right, pizza. Right. Talking Eagles. Right. You can't let go of the Eagles.
Come on, man.
I know. It's what he's going to want to talk about it.
Look, I hate to tell you.
They're coming to Baltimore this year.
I have never seen fans throw things at their own Santa Claus like Philadelphia fans. I mean, crazy. But anyway,
the Philadelphia Stadium was the first stadium to have the magistrate inside.
That's really Veterans Stadium.
They took you right to the magistrate and they arraigned you right there. Yeah,
that's right.
They drained your pockets. Give us your money. We'll let you out. You can go watch the game. Anyway, guys, on a serious note, we are talking about the housing market tonight, as we did last week. We are seeing a massive shift, and I have to tell you, for all of the naysayers that have been saying this, come on out. If you're an agent and you have been in denial, it's probably because you don't do many transactions and you haven't, you don't know what's up over the last couple of months. And Mark and I, we were doing some research in our area today in Maryland, where we're not the biggest state, but we pack a punch here in Maryland. I mean, we have about 6 million people that live in a very small state, and very compact. We have our federal government, we have state and local governments, we have military installations, we have the FBI department. I mean, great jobs is what I'm getting.
Healthcare, NSA, Fort Meade, you name it, cybersecurity, all day long.
Yeah, so we've got great jobs, so people can afford to spend a lot of money on real estate, and buyers are just saying, hell no. Now they're at the point right now where they're like, you know what? Even with rates coming down, the appetite to dive into the housing market is just, people are exhausted. I don't know what took so long. I mean, we've been talking about it since April of 2022. For those of you that want to come on the comments and say, Todd's been talking about this for the last 10 years, you obviously don't watch my channel. Wasn't even doing YouTube 10 years ago. But we have been talking about the indicators where the affordability index just didn't make sense. And when we were looking at a pandemic boom era, and you can call it whatever you want, we had an injection of liquidity, and we watched that liquidity inflate just about every financial market in the United States, from our securities market to our housing market to our banking industry, which has been feeling the pain, and now we're in one of the biggest debt bubbles that we've ever been in. And I'm not talking about the federal government deficit. I'm talking about the men and women in this country that are carrying, over $1 trillion collectively in credit card debt. And by the way, if you haven't checked your credit card statement, if you are not paying your credit card every single month, you're paying, up to 34%, 35%, 34.99%, I think is the limit. But anyway, so tonight, guys, we're gonna take some questions. We're going to dive into the Maryland market, and then Phil's going to give us an update on the Florida market. And the reason why, I really like Phil being on the show is because if you look at any chart of population growth, and I'm not talking about just population growth since 2020, I'm talking about population growth since 1900. Florida tops the states that have experienced that the most amount of growth, other than like California and Texas, that are way bigger than the state of Florida. So when you look at the per capita area, Florida has exploded, and we don't have to tell you how unaffordable things are in Florida, but that's changing as well. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to let Mark kind of go first and talk about what he is seeing on the street here in Maryland. I figured, we'd bring Mark in because, Mark has a team of agents. And, so they are collectively, they're stacking listings, and I'll let him talk about that. But I do want to say, guys, that we are going to bring in some callers tonight. So if you would like to talk about anything relative to real estate, ask any questions for myself, Mark, or Phil. We'd love to hear from you tonight. The only thing I ask, we will cut you short. So we just ask that you not be long-winded with it, and that, we can move through and help as many people as possible tonight. And of course, we'll take your comments in the chat. So Mark, why don't you take it away?
So, I think the biggest thing in the market right now, and Harry Dent, the economist who was on the podcast this past Saturday, unbelievable video that you put out, phenomenal. But the one thing that really stuck in my crawl, as they say, was delusion. I think this market is packed with delusion right now, whether it's my colleagues, whether it is the buyers, whether it's our baby boomers, whether it's the infamous sellers that are out there. I just think there's so much delusion out there as far as what is taking place in this market right now, or what's not taking place in this market. We dove deep into the numbers today, and they were eye-opening. Last evening, just sitting back and, preparing for some of the comments for this evening's show, and got into looking at the MAR numbers and what they're putting out there from May 2024. It's astonishing to think that they're able to put out such wrong numbers. When you see that, when they're going out there and saying the average days on market in May, the end of May, where it was 7 days on the market. Come on now. What is that? That's absolute. I don't know what that is. They're lying to us. When we dove into the numbers today, when you look at Baltimore County right now, the average days on market for 30 plus days on the market is what? 47%.
47%
active listings
on the market for
in Baltimore
than 30
County.
days.
That's astonishing. So looking back at the numbers that MAR put out, saying 7 days on the market, where are they getting their numbers versus what we dug into today as of June? So is that like the market shifted that much from May to, here we are in July? I don't think so. I think this is just a gradual, the infamous frog in the boiling water, where this is just, it's constantly just simmering. And then you go further down Anne Arundel County. What is that? You got 46%.
Well, look at the percentage of price drops too.
Yeah, the price drops 36%, 30%, 34%. You got, how about, you got Carroll County, 58%. 58% of the homes out there in Carroll County right now have actually made a price adjustment. It's just, for the.
At least one.
At least one. And for the agents out there, look, there's some decent colleagues that I work with, day in and day out. But for the majority of them, they just don't believe these numbers. They don't think it's real. They don't think this shift is happening and it's real. One thing I'll say to those that are listening out there, you got to understand, where there's volatility, there is absolutely opportunity. And I firmly believe that. I'm the type that's going to go out there and say, look, I'm not all the doom and gloom. There's an opportunity in this market, but this market's filled with delusion from the buyer side, not taking advantage of some of the opportunities out there. Maybe they're sitting back. Maybe we're in the dog days of summer as far as, being on vacation season, but and I know that's going to end over this next week to 2 weeks. And the activity is not there right now that we're seeing, whether it's open houses, whether it's these houses going on the market. And again, let's talk about baby boomers. Look, here we are, with this, infamous 155,000 plus subscribers. And this will be the first show that I admit that I'm a baby boomer. I'm a baby boomer. How about that? About 24 days, I'm a baby boomer, as far as to admit that. And all my fellow baby boomers, they're not moving.
So it's your fault.
It is. Right. It's my fault. I can go out there and call them baby. They don't even like to be called baby boomers. My son Jack calls me a baby boomer. Stop. But anyway, on this point here, the baby boomers went through the great financial crisis of 2008, lost all their equity. And we're in a situation right now where it's taken 10 to 12 years for that equity to return. And we're back in this same boat where that market, and we have this affordability issue, and they're still sitting on the sidelines and not moving. So to me, there's delusion there that these baby boomers, I know, banging, my bad, get all excited. But these baby boomers have got to get moving.
We have any pillows in the house?
Excuse me?
Pillows.
That's my, I don't even wear jewelry. I move my hands. I'll take all my things. But with that being said, the baby boomers out there, it's just, we got to get that message. They got to move. They got to sell because that equity is at a peak. The maintenance costs are increasing. The buyers are pausing out. They're negotiating. They know they can negotiate right now. They know they can get favorable terms. So let's go.
Yeah, and I think the question comes down and one of the things that we talk about when we're advising, sellers or potential sellers, because a lot of people, they think that, well, the baby boomer doesn't need to sell. They're wasting a lot of their equity in, heating and heat and air conditioning and property insurance and taxes and maintenance on their houses. And, so what happens is people think, these baby boomers are never going to go anywhere. Well, the fact of the matter is that they do have money. They do have equity in their house right now, and they have options. They can pay cash. They can, downsize. But, a lot of them have been holding on, and a lot of people that we talk to, they'll call up or they'll, set an appointment, and they'll say, I'm thinking about selling in the next 2 to 3 years. So the conversation isn't really with the baby boomer that I want to sell today or tomorrow. The conversation is, I want to sell in 2 or 3 years. When should I sell? And so what we have to do is we have to analyze what their risk reward is. So when you're looking at, if they're downsizing in the first place, and a lot of these people just want to move in with their family. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational housing coming along, and people are buying houses together, and so a lot of them a lot of them are outdated. You look at some of these houses and you go, wow, you haven't replaced the kitchen in 30 years. Yes, it's worked for you. You may have replaced a roof, but your flooring is outdated. You have tile ceilings, drop ceilings where people want drywall ceilings and things like that. So when you look at some of the functional and the outdated obsolescence, we have to look at it and say, okay, let's weigh your costs, your risk, and where you want to be in 2 or 3 years. And a lot of those people are deciding, what? Yep, I think I will, sell now, where we're still kind of at the top of the market And because depending on where your house is, when you're looking at $1 million house and you're 60 years old and you're looking at downsizing in the next couple of years and maybe even relocating to where Phil is, you look at it and you go, hey, I could lose $200,000, right? And that's a big number. So when we're talking about a housing correction, we are in the most overheated housing bubble we've ever been in the history of the United States. And the numbers don't work, guys. The jobs reports are coming out. Unemployment first of all, full-time jobs, and these are from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and we've got some great shows coming out. Danielle DiMartino Booth, I interviewed her today. It's coming out on Saturday. David Rosenberg, he's a chief financial, he's an economist, 40 years in the business, has Rosenberg Research. When we're analyzing data and we're looking at the data, you have to dive into the truth and the facts. And the average full-time employee right now nationwide works 34.2 hours a week. That's almost 1 day shy. In Maryland, we call a 40-hour work week a full-time job. So when you're looking at how the government classifies a full-time job, 34 hours, you're good. It's full time, right? And that's not enough. People aren't making it on that. And despite the jobs that the federal government is pushing out there, adding to the deficit, look, we just found out most of the states, they're going to have to cut their budgets by 50% because they're broke, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to see the government jobs now take a hit. Google it. This is just recently announced.
All the numbers are government jobs, all the numbers they have.
But here's the thing. If you look very carefully, we have a net decline in full-time jobs in America despite the government's attempt to pump up the jobs market with their posting. So anyway, Phil, kind of give us an update on what's happening in your town.
I'll give you a snapshot. If you guys, Joe, if you could put up the chart I gave you on the MLS numbers for the last 7 days. Now, publicly, the public gets last month's numbers. These are the last 7 days. So public won't get these for a month and a half. But this is what's happening. This is the largest MLS in Florida. It's stellar. So it goes, I use this as a sample because it goes from Daytona Beach over to Tampa. So from east to west coast, down to Cape Coral, and then back over to Port St. Lucie, like St. Lucie County. So it's that whole center section of Florida. Doesn't count Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Broward down south. That's a separate one. But this is a general understanding. And their percentages are the same. The numbers are lower, but the percentages are the same. So if you look at this, in the last 7 days, okay, there were 11,713 new listings that hit the market. Okay, price decreases, 14,895. Now, back on the market, that means they were under contract and either they fell out because of an inspection or a deal went bad. 2,706. Now, let's look at expired, temporary off the market, withdrawn, and canceled. Okay, if you look at that, you got 1,800, another 17. That's what, 34, 30, 3,600. And another one, so what, 4,000 more, 5,000 more. They're going to most likely, most of them go back on. So if you take those numbers, the 2,700, the 5,000, that's 7,700 more. You're at almost 20,000 new listings in 7 days that went on the market. And then you see 7,000 sold. So you've got a let's just say $11,000 listing deficit of what's coming on than what's going off. And that's just the last 7 days. This has been happening in the last 2 months, constantly, every week in these numbers. And what you're having is, what I'm seeing, a lot of investors are dumping. A lot of single family homes, investors have them. They're scared. My last transactions, many of them, it's investors who either own the house outright, have 50, 60% equity in it. The taxes went up. The people want to pay less rent. The costs are going up. The maintenance, the management fees, everything's going up. And they're getting out. They're cashing out. They're either 1031 exchanging into something else, or they're taking the cash out, paying the taxes gladly and holding on to the money because everything's coming down and they know they can buy in then. And that's what we're running into. Now, just traditional buyers, first-time buyers, people upgrading, it's dead. There's nothing. All the listings on the market, the houses are beat up. I go in there, people are sleeping on mattresses on the floor. They're not even living an average life. I can tell you listing after listing after listing. So what the public sees and what is really happening is two different things. And like you said, a lot of the agents, they don't understand it themselves. I mean, they're having a hard time writing a contract and checking the right boxes. You know, a lot of that is the problem. And, you know, I see houses coming on the market just now. Just today, I looked at one over in Pine Island. I mean, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. They're listing at 1.3 million. They bought it for 1.1 back in, I think, 22. The house is worth maybe
at the top.
$900,000. It's worth $900,000. You know, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, but some agent took it and put it on the market. But what's happening is they still have the false hope of somebody coming. Now, what I'm doing, I'll give you a perfect example how you navigate this as a broker, as an agent. See, in Florida, everybody's coming to Florida, right? So we need to advertise these properties, these listings outside of Florida. So when we're marketing, we're doing the global marketing, 18 languages, 140 countries. And the last sales I've had are people coming into Florida. It's not people in Florida buying. The people in Florida aren't going anywhere. You know, they're in those homes, 2, 3, 4, 5%. They're staying there. Now, my fear is if this government lowers the rates, first of all, inflation is going to go up, and everybody's saying, "Oh, they lower the rates, house prices are going to go up." I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't think inflation is going to go up when they lower the rates. We are at the end of the road.
But here's what I fear is going to happen. So just like now, when the rates went up, everybody thought, oh, you know, it'll slow pricing down. It didn't, because all the people with the lower rates held on. They're not going anywhere. So there's not enough inventory. But I fear if they bring those rates back down, they're going to start cashing out. And what's going to happen is it's going to flood the inventory, and it's going to bring the prices down even harder.
Yeah. So, and you're right. So here is, if you look at the data, go back to the Great Depression, the housing market, we've only seen prices go up in, you know, home sales, right? Real estate, not commercial property so much, because there's a hard cycle in commercial real estate, and you get a lot of physical obsolescence with commercial. I mean, look, these old office buildings that are standing for 70, 80, 100 years, they are so expensive. They need to be torn down, right? I mean, just to update infrastructure to bring them to like a Class A building, you know, it would cost too much money, right? And so forget that aspect of it. And by the way, that's where we're going to see a huge bath. And that's 70%, that commercial real estate is 70% of a bank's balance sheets on average, especially, you know, our regional banks. But I'm talking about residential home sales. Mm-hmm. We have never seen a phenomenon of investors pour into the market like we have in the last decade, the last 15 years. It was accelerated during the 2020 on. We have more Instagrammers and TikTokers and more people selling, you know, real estate, investing programs than we ever have. It has been glamorized. It has been, institutionalized.
I see wholesalers. You got these wholesalers with these contracts. They're buying it for like 180 grand, and they're trying to sell for 185 grand.
The assignments.
It's going on. It's worse than that. Crazy. It's worse. They're not asking 5,000. They want 50,000. But besides that, okay, so if we look at the global financial crisis, the housing market crash, which was the first housing crash of its time in a lifetime, right? Yeah. I mean, that and everyone's in denial. Barbara Corcoran's in denial. Dave Ramsey's in denial. I mean, you hear all these real estate experts are in denial, saying that we will never experience this ever again. Here's the problem. The problem is, if we look at from 1997 to to really 2005, 2006, we saw appreciation in housing like we'd never seen before. Well, what happened is we had the stock market crash. That fueled the real estate market because they said, you know what? I'm losing money on my stock portfolio. I'm panicking. A lot of these baby boomers, this was baby boomers that were panicking, right? Back then, they had a lot of wealth in the stock market. They said, oh my gosh, I'm watching my retirement getting ready to be completely wiped out. The stock market's crashing. They sold short. Right? Then they poured their money into what they thought was the safest bet ever, and that was the real estate market. Okay. So that crashed and they got a double whammy, right? We saw
it wasn't
the
only
biggest,
them, it was foreign investors too.
but I'm just talking about, what happened to our housing market. Okay. Now let's look at it now. We're at an all-time high. We have earnings trading higher than they ever have in the stock market, right? Everybody's saying, most people, financial analysts are saying it's bubble activity. You have a few stocks pulling the whole market. And when that goes, people aren't going to invest in real estate because they remember what happened.
Yeah.
So now we've got a double whammy, right? So the real estate market's going to crash after the stock market crashes. We're seeing it adjust right now. We're seeing a correction on the real estate side. And now there's not going to be anything to prop it up because investors are like, now we watched it crash in 2008 and it can crash again. And it can crash 2 times in our lifetime. And this bubble was inflated by the government
and the
stimulus.
The problem you have now with this bubble too, it's not just housing. It's not just banking. It's not just mortgage problems. You have an auto industry problem. You have a interest rate Fed problem. You have a problem with the BRICS nations trying to deface the dollar. You have the petrodollar that went away. There's a lot of problems. It's not just bad mortgages packaged up and sold as a paper. There's so many problems. When you look at one problem, 3 more come up. You look at another problem, there's 5 more that come up. And we're being led by misfits. The people leading us, they're trying to put blocks in holes, in round holes. We're led by misfits. They have no clue what they're doing. The politicians on both sides, it's not one side. They're all just misfits. And the problem we have is they just keep going and they keep printing money and they don't care about the people. It's really crazy how things are just pushing forward, politically, financially. We cannot keep up with what we're doing. You got to look at it. I mean, listen, you got Section 8 housing, you got food stamps, you got all these things that are being given to people. And the problem you have is the grocery stores, they're counting on those food stamps. They're already rung into their sales next month because they know as soon as that money gets to those people, it's coming into them. All of those things outside of just real estate affect it. At what point can the government not keep giving because they're not taking in enough? We're in a deficit every month, every year. There's going to come a point because, listen, 55% of the country taxes pays for the other 45% of the country. Like the housing, the food stamps, the medical benefits. It's going to come to a point. We're already there. We don't have enough money. We're going negative every time they make a payment. And the people are sick and tired. The people who are paying the taxes had enough. So what's going to happen when we go too far? Because as soon as that BRICS nation, they come in, they're talking about going with the cryptocurrency, backing it with gold. That stuff starts happening. Then, I'm not that diverse in that topic, but that starts happening and these countries stop using the dollar. We're done. Our treasury is going to collapse. Everything's done. And it's going to be monopoly money. And I just don't know what's going to happen and what's going to take these people from doing this to changing because they just keep progressing the same way. And it's super frustrating. And, I'm tired of it personally. I'm sure if I'm tired of it and I'm feeling this way, there's got to be millions of people feeling the same way. That's just how I feel about it.
Yep.
But you're super busy.
I'm busy, but here's why. I'm busy. Here's why. I'm busy because I know how to attract people. I know how to find investors who need to get rid of a property.
Right.
I know how to find a buyer to put them in.
Right.
I'm busy. 95% of the agents aren't. I see them starving.
I know that.
I know how to make money. I have a pizza business. I have cigar lounges. I have nightclubs. Listen, people need 3 things. They need somewhere to sleep. They need something to eat. And they need to be entertained. Even during the depression, they need to be entertained.
Absolutely.
Okay. You give them those 3 things, you always make money and be busy.
Yep.
No matter what's going on in the world. But you have to, and that's why I have real estate businesses. That's why I teach real estate. That's why I have the pizza businesses. Everybody loves pizza, and cigars, lounges, nightclubs, have a couple drinks. It all works together.
I like it.
And that's how I lived my whole life since I was a kid. So you pivot, so right now I'm pivoting. I have a buyer come to me. They come to me. Okay, I'll do an MLS search, show them what's on the market. But what I show them, I show them every house that has an FHA and a VA mortgage where they can assume that mortgage at 2.75, 3.75, 4.75. And I'm showing them those houses. Now a buyer can buy the same house they would buy at today's rate. You buy a $500,000 house and you assume a 3% mortgage instead of paying, today you're going to pay, $1,500, $2,000 less to assume that house than you would if you took the same mortgage on the house to buy it on a $500,000 house. So what I'm finding is when I'm working with buyers, that's what I'm showing them. When I'm working with sellers, first thing I ask them, I look at the tax record, I see what their mortgage is. Do they have a VA mortgage? Do they have an FHA mortgage? Am I able to pitch that? I have a listing right now. This is going to blow your mind. I have a client had a listing with a broker. It has a 3.75% VA mortgage. Okay. He canceled his listing with them. They gave him the runaround, all this crazy stuff. He called me. The agent and the broker did not know a VA mortgage is assumable at 3.75%. I swear to God.
That's crazy.
They're still fighting with him. He had to put a complaint with the board. He had to put a complaint with I told him to put a complaint with the state because it's misrepresentation. And then they're given a hard time. They're single agents. They're violating the fiduciary duty 3-4 times. And we're getting close now. We're at that point. But they finally withdrew it. But they didn't cancel it yet. So they're giving them a hard time. I put this on the market. I'll sell it in 2 weeks, 3.75%.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you this question, Phil. Are you still seeing like sellers as far as where they're pricing their homes right now, where they're a little bit delusional to where that post-COVID, where they just think they can put it out there for any number or at the top of the market, as opposed to being, having a strategy as far as to maybe not go to the top of the market, but, bring it down a little bit to create demand? Are you seeing it there in Florida too?
The first thing I'm doing with them is explaining them. When I pull my reports, I show them everything that's on the market, pending, withdrawn, canceled, anything that's distressed. And I show them what they're up against. And I say, look, here's the last 6 months, but we can't really go off of this because things are down about, 5-6%. You got to know what's coming towards you. If we go too high, nobody's coming. And I kind of like explain to them what's going on. Now they have a number in mind. They're always high. They're always higher because my neighbor sold his house for this much 8 months ago, or a year ago, So what I do with them is I show them the facts because, listen, I always tell them numbers don't lie, people do. So don't worry about what you're hearing. Let's look at the numbers. I'm on your side. I don't want to sell the house cheaper, or I'd like to get the most money we can for it. That's the goal. But I show them, here's reality. Here's what you want, but here's reality. And I sit down with them and show them. And my strategy with them is, we get it on the market and we'll put it on the market. We'll leave it there for 10 days. Maybe we'll leave it with hey, we'll give you 10 grand towards closing costs. We'll work that in. Then we'll wait 10 days. And then if nothing's happening, not much showings, we'll bring it down a little bit. We'll leave the incentive for the closing costs. Then what we do is we remove the incentive. So we'll bring it down one more time. And then we remove the 10 grand. So that's a
slippery slope though, man. But going through the GFC, that's a slippery slope because once there's blood in the street, man, once people get a taste of a price reduction, I believe you get in front of it. You get in front of it. You get in front of the train. You price it right. You price it to get multiple offers. If you're a smart seller agent team, you're gonna hit the market and you're not gonna have to do a price reduction. I think it's catastrophic.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm pricing it correctly in the beginning with a little bit of a contribution. I'm not going the price they want.
Why are you reducing the price if you're pricing it right?
Because if you're not getting any showings or anything in 10 days,
then it wasn't priced right.
Well, I don't know, man. That's not true. Not in this market. Not where we are now.
It is true. The buyers dictate the market. They buy with their feet. That price is everything. And you can do all the marketing that you want to do. If the buyer doesn't see the value, you're not getting the price. So I think that, the key is, and I learned this as a real estate investor selling back in the GFC. And believe me, I mean, no one saw it coming, okay? If for you naysayers, first of all, that want to listen to whatever and comment what you want, all right, I lived through it.
Yeah.
Okay. There was no indication. Okay. Ben Bernanke was saying that the housing market was strong. We would never see it collapse, right? We weren't selling at the multiples that we are now, folks. Homes were still affordable. Yeah, the prices were up, but it was still a median salaried buyer, whether it's a single or a dual income buyer that was looking at a house, they could find a medium priced house that they could afford. All right.
But you had inventory, right? You had inventory.
Well, we were selling inventory just as fast as it was going. It was firecracker hot. Let me tell you something. I had agents negotiating on hoods on their cars. Yeah. Back then, it was no different. This isn't like a surprise. Hold on. Let me finish. Sure. All right. Here's the thing. What happens is you have trends. You got an uptrend and you got a downtrend. And this is a trend that you're not going to stop. These are cycles. Yeah, sure. All right. You get booms, you get bust. Hello, look back in history. If you think that the sky isn't going to fall and we're going to continue, you're delusional. All right. So let's take it this way. I don't have to draw a map to show you this. Right. If the prices are going up and you're a buyer, you're going to try and get in front of it.
Correct.
Because you want to pay a little bit more today because you know in a month from now it may go higher. So you want to offer the seller more money today in an upward trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In a downward trend, you want to offer less money than what it should be selling for. So you got to get in front of it. You got to jump months ahead in your pricing analysis, and you got to beat the buyer to it. When the buyer sees that price, they'll bid it up to where the market dictates.
Yeah, they'll come back up. Yeah, sure.
They will come back up. Yeah. It's I don't agree with this, price it on the edge in a downward spiral. You have to get in front of it, and you let the buyers, then it will energize a frenzy. It's a strategy and it works. No different than multiple offers offering more than list price in an upward trend.
It's just
all they're doing is getting in front of it. Yeah. So, that's what that's what we have to do. And Phil, I know you're a great broker. I'm not knocking on you, man. But
but what I'm saying is the problems I'm running into is the buyers need the assistance. The buyers need the assistance to buy. And not only that, we have the changes coming with the MLS.
They'll raise the price. They'll still raise the price. I just had a situation where we got the highest price in the neighborhood, okay? Just a couple months ago. We got the highest price in the neighborhood. The sellers were ecstatic. They couldn't believe that we did it. We priced it right. We priced it lower than we should have. We could have pushed the envelope, but we knew it was softening. We pushed it down. We dropped it down. The buyer came in. They gave us more money than what we wanted, a lot, and they wanted the assistance. So we said, you want the assistance? I'll tell you how you get it.
You build it.
We're going back up.
Right. Yeah. So help me out real quick. So if a house is, a value is at $350,000 in this market right now where it's trending down, we know it's going down, no doubt. So if the house is no doubt a $350,000 house, you got an appraiser's opinion, you're rock solid at that $350,000. So my strategy, or you tell me different, if the seller agrees or the seller is in cahoots as far as working that, would you go at $340,000, $344,000?
What did I just write down?
What did you write down?
340.
340.
Right.
Exactly. Right.
That's what I do.
You're going in below the market to let the market demand build it back up.
Heck yeah, man.
Love that.
Heck yeah.
I think that's where you got to come in and bid it up. That's what.
And that's why I asked you, Phil, before.
And you know what?
Sellers are delusional.
365.
Because sellers are 360, right? Because you're looking to attract multiple.
I'm getting them excited. I'm getting them excited. They're not excited. The buyers aren't excited. They're not excited.
They're nervous.
That's why. Right. Absolutely. They better see the value. But
they better see, but they're still exuberant. So they're still exuberant. So if you can get, I'm sorry, buyers, but it's true. Now, look, we shift. I hate to tell you, but we have to serve both buyers and sellers. So if I'm a seller's, if I'm representing a seller, I'm going to do everything I can strategize to get my seller the most amount of money. If I'm representing a buyer, what am I doing? I'm trying to get them the best deal. And you know what? And the advantage is that we're dealing with a lot of agents here, folks, that shouldn't be in the business.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
They're toxic.
100%.
They're toxic. So when I get, and I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The one I'm talking about, and I'm talking about a situation that comes to mind recently where we listed a house and we had a ton of showings. I mean, it was a revolving door. I couldn't get an offer. I'm like, I don't understand it. We're only a week in. Okay, this is before we start seeing the major adjustment, and it is there. It's a major adjustment. But anyway, and we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can save when you're buying and what you should be looking at for slick agents that think they're slick. They're trying to manipulate this market. But anyway, so we had, I don't know, over the course of 4 days, probably 30 showings. And we didn't have any offers. Now, people were like, yeah, we're looking at it. Had a couple people come back multiple times. But I'm like, wait a minute. In 2 days, this house should be gone, right? I had an agent submit an over list price offer. Now, here, I don't have any offers. I didn't pretend I had offers. I didn't tell them that I had no. I mean, I wasn't saying, hey, we had 30 people look at it, and my gosh, we haven't had any offers. No, I just said, you know what? A lot of people looking at it. We're going to try and make a decision, probably set a deadline date next week, whatever. Agent came in hot and heavy, overpriced. And I'm looking at it and I went, why the hell would they do that?
Yeah.
Right? I'm going, why would they do that?
Did they confirm whether you had offers in hand?
4 days on the, well, yeah. I mean, I said, no, I didn't lie. But
still.
4 days on the market and I don't have any offers in hand. I'm honest about it. And they're coming in, not at list price, but over. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, let me check this agent out. And I look back and the agent hasn't done a transaction at all this year.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2 transactions in 23. And I'm going, why would anybody buying a house? I'm sorry, everybody has their first day on the job, but why are you using an agent that's
because she knew her buyer would go that far, and she wanted a guarantee sale.
Commission breath.
100. Absolutely,
all
all day long.
Look at it.
All day
you can
long.
Look at it. You could say that's not true.
It's
You're
crazy.
not. You're not diving into the market data. Pull Mark's data back up from what we looked at.
The worst part of that whole thing is probably a friend or a family member who's using her because they know her and she just screwed them.
The biggest financial decision, and you're going to pay for this for the next 30 years, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
And you're going to hope that you make money at the end of the day. And, here we are, and everybody wants to blame the agent. No. I'm going to say you got to take some of this onus on yourself, because if you had a bad experience, you got to look in the mirror and say, did I do the things that I should have done?
Well,
did I interview?
How about what Clever came out with in their study? 93% of the buyers during COVID and post-COVID regretted their purchase.
How many?
93%.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew it was
it's outrageous.
Hot.
93%.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, we see it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people call me up and they're like, can I get out of my house? Well, when did you buy it? Last year? No.
Huh.
Did you put any money down? 3%. Conventional. 3.5% FHA.
Right.
Going, what have you done? Have you done anything to the house? No. It's the same house. I didn't get an inspection last time. And by the way, this is on its last leg and whatever. It's like, but look at these numbers. So here's what I want to tell you. And Mark is very, has been very modest in talking about this data, but I'm going to say it. It took him a couple hours to put this chart together, and it doesn't seem like that much, okay? Because I watched him, and I've done it myself, and it takes time. And you could sit there and say, well, then you guys are idiots. No, we're not idiots. We don't get up-to-date information in the MLS. We have to mine for it.
Yep.
Because they do everything in their power to not give us the up-to-date information, because the current trends would scare the hell out of you. Okay,
I just showed them to you.
We're just right. You showed it, Phil, and we showed it. What we do here is when we're putting things together, we're looking at the data that is not being just provided at a click that's a month and a half old. Phil said it. The data changes and the market changes like that. All right. So when we're looking at this data and we're looking in a specific county and we're honing in on a detached single family house and we're looking at days on the market, is your agent providing you data and information to help you price strategy when you're buying or selling? And this is critical, because if you're looking at lagging data you're not getting the current market conditions of the buyers and the sellers and where they are mentally and emotionally.
This is eye-opening.
It's
I mean, you get into it,
100%
we know that knowledge is power, but when you dig into this and dive into this, it gives you confidence.
When we get the people that fire off and they say price drops, so houses are only going up right there.
Right.
36, 35, 34, 58, 43, 31, 48, 54% of the houses on the market identified here. Single family, 150 to 450,000 guys. It gets worse when you go up in price. This is meat and potatoes here in Maryland. This is affordable housing. This is when you see affordable housing price drops. I'm not talking about a $2 million house that takes a $300,000 haircut. I am talking about affordable, where the biggest pool of buyers are right now, and you're seeing these price reductions. That spells the end of this run, and you just like our title. Sorry, it's too late, sellers.
It's the summer. It's the summer. This shouldn't be doing this.
Right. You've got vacations. You've got back to school.
Yeah.
You have holiday season. And the problem that when we've been talking to people and we're saying that this train's coming, right? And everybody wants to turn their back to it and say it's not happening. And you said it, Phil. Investors are throwing in the towel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Met
That's
with one
the scariest
yesterday.
part.
Met with one yesterday. Sat down. 4 properties in Baltimore. All the tenants, they pay on time. Everything is good. He's just done. He's just done with it. The maintenance expense, just everything else that goes hand in hand with the investment properties. He's taking his money and he's going to discount them out 20 to 30% in order to move these properties quickly.
And the investors are worried what happens when they stop paying. The next problem comes along, they can't get paid. And then they have all the additional costs.
Rents are coming down. Rents are coming down big time.
I know.
500,000 multi-unit completions this year. Another 500,000, 500,000 units completions within the next year. These developers and builders are slowing down, trying to delay and trying to lag their development process right now. It's happening. You're seeing sites that are not even, right, they're throwing the keys back. Right. You're seeing sites with nobody working. And you're going, well, why aren't they working? Because the developer's slowing it down because they don't want a glut. Now all of a sudden you're going to tell the bank. It's much easier to tell the bank, hey, my contractors are busy. We're waiting on materials. We're waiting on supplies than it is to say, oh, yeah, guys, we got 50% vacancy. And the bank's going, what?
Yeah. Yep.
We didn't finance this property with 50% vacancy in mind.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about sellers. Because we've been changing, the way that we tell sellers. I mean, how are you prepping sellers now, Mark?
Oh, my Lord. The first thing, we talked about this earlier today, I shared with you. I mean, before I ever sit down with the seller, obviously you're getting the information as far as the house, what they think the value is. And I know, Phil, your sellers down in Florida or wherever they are, their first go-to is going to be Zillow, going to be Redfin, or any of the major marketing platforms that are out there. And a lot of people just don't realize they're marketing platforms. It's what they are. But we'll take that information, and as I mentioned previously, I have relations. My whole background with mortgage banking, I have relations with several different appraisers that I work with, to where I'm going in that door from a listing standpoint, and I'm going in loaded with information as far as to say, look, I'm not that tool realtor out here to give you, my opinion, where the average realtor out there closes 6 to 8 transactions, a year, if that. And then they're coming out there, your sister's cousin's brother, who's now the expert, giving you an opinion on that house as far as that value. That's what we're facing out there.
I mean, tell everybody how many transactions you did last year. I mean, you're not bragging, but just,
86 myself personally, 86.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the front lines. Yeah. I live on the front lines. That's what I do.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. I'm on the front lines every single day. Do I got dirt on my face? I mean, it's a war out there. I'm on the front lines every single day, grinding it out, working with those sellers. So the sellers out there, that's why I asked Phil before, a lot of the sellers, a lot of people in this market, they don't have any concept as far as what is really taking place in this market. As far as these declining values, as far as activity and how price sensitive the market is. We've been talking about this for some time, that this affordability issue was major, that these buyers were I called it a methodic approach in their approach to buying a house. And you're seeing that even more so. We have rates at 6 7/8, 6.5. You got some 6 1/4s out there right now.
Yeah.
And these buyers are still plodding along, looking at not just at one house and reacting where they did before. They're looking at multiple houses to see if that house, if that list price resonates with the value of that house, with the quality of that house. So the sellers out there, they still believe in that post-COVID, put anything on the market and it will sell. Well, guess what? I'm stacking wood right now. What that means is I'm stacking listings because I know this market is shifting. I know this market and these sellers will have that come to Jesus moment per se and realize that they just can't put any old price out there. So that's why I'm going in with that information. And of course, we defer to our sellers and they're making that ultimate decision because it is their investment. But I'm calibrating my approach also and going into this mining of this data to where it is eye-opening as far as the price reductions within 30 days. It's eye-opening to the length of time on the market being greater than 30 days. How much, it was surprising
change.
It's unbelievable. Howard County, it features Columbia, which is the number 1 place to live in Maryland, number 13 in all of America. They only have 80 listings out there. That just says everything about Howard County, being that it's diverse, being that the schools, the education, the opportunities from an employment standpoint. But then you look at Montgomery County and the numbers in Montgomery County from an affordability standpoint, 251 listings. And then we have 41% of them are been on the market greater than 30 days. And that's mind-blowing because Montgomery County goes hand in hand with Howard County for demand typically, but not in this case. You don't see that. So for example, I have a client right now. We're looking to do a listed townhome down in Gaithersburg in Montgomery County. And I had that conversation with him prior to us, getting together the seating for the podcast. And I said, look, that value all day long on that townhome, we have that opinion from the appraiser at $450,000, but cool your jets. We just did some major data mining right now, and over 40% of the houses in Montgomery County are sitting. So you can't go to the top of the world from a listing standpoint. You got to bring it down. We got to attract the buyers.
One of the things I'm seeing in Fort Lauderdale, townhouses and condos. Okay, year over year is down 10.9%. And the inventory is up 86% year over year. That's condos. Now the condos, they're trying to get out of them because of all the fees and associations. Insurance is going up. So now the single families are down like 10%, but the price is up. So I think it's like 11%, 12%. Last I looked at it.
Let me put this in there. Yeah. Let me add this real quick, Phil, because you just brought that up, that 86%, where a lot of sellers are also, because they're listening to the talking heads out there other than this channel, say that, well, come on, inventory is up 20, 30, 40% because it was at nothing over the last 24 months. Okay. Yes, but you're still not diving and peeling back those layers of that onion and looking deeper into these affordability issues. A lot of people don't see it. I'm telling you. That's why I opened up with that delusion comment. I think it's also for the sellers right now that if you have, just like Harry Dent going back to The Economist on Saturday said, if you have this extra real estate or that real estate you don't need, sell it. Sell it now. Secure your equity. Get your equity.
Hold the cash and wait. Hold the cash and wait. I'm telling you, I've done it. That's what I did.
Yeah, and that's a good point. What do you do with your money? And you're right, Phil. A lot of smart money is saying that just invested in bonds right now because even if the dollar, does take a, I think a lot of people think it's at least 12 to 18 months off. So, I think everything's going to be on sale. I don't think it's just going to be houses. We're going to see the everything bubble at this point just because, nobody can afford anything. So, and we're talking, look, I'm not talking about the top 5, 10% of America. I'm talking about middle America. And lower class from an income standpoint. I'm not saying that you're less of a person because you don't make a lot of money. And, with David Rosenberg today, and he's an economist. He's smart. I mean, look, he was probably one of the smartest guys that I have interviewed, or he's up there. He's at the top, and he understands markets like nobody does. I mean, the guy's a genius when it comes to the securities markets, especially. But one of the things that he said that I really disagreed with is we were talking about AI. And, a lot of people don't realize the implications. Volvo just came out with a commercial and, I'm a member of this, company called Ad Age. And this is, they're a publication for, I just have always liked the advertising industry. And I think that's one of the things that's so neat about, how we advertise houses and market and things like that. But so I just like reading this stuff. And I have friends of mine that are in the industry. They own ad agencies, full production companies in different states. But this Volvo commercial was created, they say, in less than 24 hours. It's 100% AI, Joe. I don't know if it's too much to pull it up, but 100% AI created, and they did it within 24 hours. Here it is. I mean, this is an amazing commercial. And this is a production that would have cost maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's wild.
And a lot of people from, writers, producers, cameramen and women, photographers, you just can't imagine the work that would go into making this commercial completely AI driven in less than 24 hours. This video may have taken, months to produce. Okay. So when you look at that and you go, okay, well, how is that not going to put us into poverty as far as our jobs market? And what David said was, look, he said, Todd, man, you got to look back in the day. He said, we used to wash our clothes by hand and the washing machine didn't take out jobs. And, and I get that. We are way beyond the washing machine, okay? We are looking at a time when two people have to work. We're not looking at a time where, the wife or the mom stayed home and used a washboard to wash clothes. We're not talking about, he said how domestic services, were eliminated, that the vacuum cleaner eliminated all these domestic services. Now, I love him. I respect him. And I believe in a lot of what he says. But I think that, when we look deep down at this, we are not the same United States of America as we were in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
Listen, people in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they wanted to become better. They'd wake up in the morning and they want to be better at night before they go to bed than they were in the morning. They had a drive. We all have that drive. The problem is the people here today, the generations today, not to knock them, they just weren't taught. And
We've suppressed them.
We suppressed them, actually.
We suppressed them.
But they don't have that. They're existing. They're okay with getting up, doing whatever they're going to do. And
a lot of that's our fault.
I agree. Well,
a lot of that is our fault. I'm not saying you specifically,
but the society in person, the society in general.
Look, when you baby your kids to the point that you don't want them to suffer like you did, the very reason that helped you propel and accumulate and accelerate, and but I said to David, and you're right on, okay? Yeah. But I said to David today, I said, Dave, and we were kind of on topic, off topic, on record, off record, and I said to him, I said, Dave, what advice do you have for these kids? And he had great advice. You know what he said? He said, go to work.
Absolutely.
He said, go to work. He said, in order to correct the problems that we have in this country is we need to reduce entitlements and we need to encourage and promote free market, being, self-employment.
But not apologize for the effort, what it takes.
Drive.
We apologize often for what it takes to get where you got to go. Like talking to Phil, he's got pizza shops, he got cigar. I would love to know.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share something with you guys.
How much you dug to get where you are. You dug and you dug and you dug and you dug.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take a minute and tell you right now. I'll tell you how I did it. I was 12 years old. I had three brothers, 9, 6, and 3. My father walked out. left. That minute, I realized what I had to do. From that second in my life, I didn't have anything. We grew up with nothing. My mom could barely make it. She worked 2 jobs, and I actually worked to give my mom money. I lost a baseball scholarship because I had to work my senior year to give her money to help her pay the bills. So, I had to pay for college. I learned what $1 was worth. I worked 2 jobs in the summer. I used to work overnight in the summer. I'd work at Binney and Smith. That's who makes the crowns and the silly putty. I used to make silly putty and the crowns. And during the day, I'd go bag groceries and be at a grocery store. And that was my summer. And then I hung out with my friends when I could. I'd work overnight, work in the summer, and I just did what I had to do. I had to pay for college.
Exactly.
I knew what it was. I knew what $1 was worth. To this day, I wake up every morning like I have zero. And I say, how am I going to make money today to live? I could have millions. I could have everything I have. And I still want to succeed. I still want to grow. I'm teaching my son. I took on all these headaches, a brokerage, a school, all the things I'm doing because I want to teach him. I don't want to do this. I was going to open a beautiful cigar bar, put a glass wall, upraised. I was going to put a desk, and I was going to hang my real estate license for my own brokerage with me and nobody else. And I was going to go to my cigar bar, close all my deals there because you do all the deals with the people in the cigar bar. And that was going to be the retirement. That was my life. That's what I was going to do. I was going to travel, do what I wanted to do. I made a decision after he finished college. They mailed him his diploma after you spend 140 grand. It was during COVID. He couldn't find a job. He came down, he visited me. He spent a month with me. He's like, Dad, I learned more with you in a month than I learned through the whole time in college. He's like, can I work with you? That moment, he got his real estate license, 2 years, got his broker license, then he got his instructor license. In that time, I decided to open the brokerage, open the school. I did all that in that time because I want him to be able to succeed. And I beat him up, man. I put so much pressure on him. And I probably shouldn't, but I put pressure on him because you know why? I don't want him to feel the pressure I felt when my father was gone and all that shit was going on. But I want him to feel the pressure enough because when I'm gone and I'm dead, he can handle it. And that's the challenge. I'm hard on him because of that. You
lead by example.
And I don't think there's much of that in the world today.
And Phil, but here's the deal. I mean, think of our industry alone. How many times have you heard somebody on Instagram or TikTok say, make money doing nothing? There is no making money doing nothing, pal. All right. There is no such thing. Landlording is one of the toughest businesses out there if you do it where you're not a slumlord and where you actually, provide a decent, environment for people to live at an affordable price. It's admirable. It used to be, it used to be, where you're helping people. Instead, now we're taking the housing industry, a roof over our head, and we're monetizing it and pushing it out. And I say that as a real estate investor, but you never heard me go on touting about, the cars that I'm driving on all the money, making $50,000 a month without working. That's crazy bullshit. Okay. No, I worked my tail off, right? I worked on the properties. I did the work myself. It was my job. It was my business. So, when you look at it, you go, okay, stop glamorizing this. Let's get down to facts here and start telling the truth.
But they cheapened everything. They cheapened everything, man. Everything. And it's just a different world today. And you have to bring people back and teach them. That's one of the reasons I did the school. What I'm doing now, this next class in September, I'm giving a discount. I'm bringing people in and I'm telling them, look, I'll teach you to get your license. And then, hey, come work with me. I'll teach you the apprenticeship and I'll teach you how to make money. And I'm having a challenge doing that.
Like, good luck,
dude. I wish to God somebody said, hey, Phil, when I was 17, 18, 22, 23, 24 years old, and said, hey, Phil, come here, come do this. I'll show you how to do this. And I'll teach you how to make money. You just got to do the work.
Can't teach
you. You know what we have to do? You can't teach them. You know what we have to do? We got to let them feel the consequences of their actions.
Feel the failure.
I tell you, my grandfather, and I haven't said this. Maybe I've said this on my podcast once or twice, but growing up, I lived in a multi-generational house. Mom and dad split up. I don't usually talk about personal stuff online, but it happened. I was a kid, and my mom moved back in with her parents, and my grandfather had worked. He was retired, and he had to go back to work because there was a baby in the house. And, and my father's passed, God, rest in peace. But, what I was getting at is this man was, my grandfather was probably the biggest influence in my life. And one of the most important things that I ever heard him say, and we don't live by this today, and this is a shame. He said, "Be fast to say no."
Yeah.
And quick to say, fast to say no and slow to say yes. Yeah. And he said, because when you tell somebody yes, it's your word, and you do not renege on your word.
Yep.
And I remember him saying that, and he said, say maybe. Say maybe.
Don't say
it's
yes,
possible.
Yep.
I'll let you know. But, what he identified with me in a very early age was that you're quick to say yes. And then when it comes to, and I'll give you an example. It could be, and it probably was something like this, telling my grandmother that I would help her on a Saturday morning or something. And, and it wasn't that he would, yank me and beat me. And though he definitely knew how to put the fear of God in me, and I loved him for it. But I remember specifically him saying to me, look, you don't say yes and not do it because people depend on you. And, and I had a client of mine, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I hope you understand that. We're talking about what we need to do, what we need to get back to, and to ground ourselves and get back to some kind of a proud to be an American life here, because we do have a great country. But I remember, just a short time ago, I drive a truck. I've been driving a truck for 35 years.
A big truck.
A big truck. I could drive whatever I want just about. And I drive a truck. I love it. And, and it's a basic truck. It's a basic Dodge truck. So if you ever see me driving something fancy, don't give me a hard time or call me. It's just what I choose to drive right now. But, and my client, we just settled a couple weeks ago. My client said, hey, I was getting some furniture from somebody that was moving at work. Will you help me move it on a Monday night? Now, let me tell you something. That's the last thing I wanted to do. I did not want to move. I got up Monday morning. I worked my freaking backside off. I mean, I was exhausted. And I kept telling him, look, what time we do it? Let's do it in the evening. I'll be there by 8 o'clock. And it ended up being by 8:30. I get there, and it was dressers. I'm talking real wood. And look, if you're listening to you, man, I'd do it again tomorrow. All right.
Better man than me.
I remember looking at this stuff, and I was like,
I love my clients.
And I looked at him and I said, is it just you and me? And he said, yeah. I'm like, all right, man, come on, let's go. Let's take the drawers out at least. So, we filled his truck, we filled my truck, and we did it. And I drove home, and I was regretting it. I was second guessing myself to saying, man, is there a way I can get out of that? And it rings in the back of my head. Your commitment means everything. You do what you say, and I did it. And there was not a better feeling driving home completely exhausted.
Absolutely.
After 11 o'clock, mind you, I didn't get home till 11:30 at night. And I felt damn good for doing it. And that's what we need to do here in America. And we need to hold our politicians accountable for the same crap.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they're at the top of the list. If you're going to teach us how to do it, man, be some leaders in this freaking country.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. And the thing for me, the money always was the byproduct for me. The relationship is always more important. The money's the byproduct. If you do what you do, you have contracts, the money's coming, no matter what you do. Some of the best relationships in my life when I was younger, I had nothing and I was coming up, was because of the relationships I built, not focusing on money, learning the bar business, the restaurant business, learning from people.
Which is a very hard business.
Very hard business. Price, and I could tell you stories in that, but basically learning from people, not getting paid what I was worth, doing it and learning it, and then from there going forward.
Being truthful.
And you get paid what you're worth. Do the right thing, learn from it, grow, and you just keep putting it in your bank.
And that goes hand in hand. Now going back to sellers, right? I didn't mean to cut you off, Phil, but going back to sellers, if you're direct with them, that's one thing. Look, what you see with me is what you get. I'm black and white, but I'm telling you, with my sellers or even with my buyers, they know straight up when I'm talking to them, and I don't get everyone, but I'm going in there and I'm going to be direct with them and tell them the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
You give everybody 100%. And no matter what happens at the end, everybody's treated the same. You know, you did the best you could. If it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. If it doesn't work out, it's their loss, not mine.
I try my best.
You know, I know what I'm bringing to the table, and that's how we are. And we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to somehow mentor and teach other people to do that. These kids today don't have that. I don't think it's that they don't want it. I just think they don't understand it or even understand. Like it's like out of their realm. You know,
Phil, you said something, that sort of, and I don't know why I feel compelled to continue these stories, but because I really don't talk too much about my.
I don't either. It's just reality right now, you know.
But you said something, and I think we're at a pivotal moment, and I think, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but I do know why I'm saying it, but it has nothing to do with real estate. But we really need our leaders to stand up. We need our. And, we need leadership in this country, and we need it down in a neighborhood level. Yep. I think that, we really need a call to action on the men and women to stand up for what they, believe in and to help people. And we need to get back to the fact that people are people. And you said something that kind of resonated because we talk about, you said something about not being worth what you're being paid. Mm-hmm. And, I think that that's an important topic because, we see so many people that think they're worth more than they are. And, when we look at it, you go, okay. And one of the things David Rosenberg said today was, work for your employer, become invaluable, become indispensable, and learn every day and read books and things like that. But I want to just remember something here because, we went through some financial struggles when I was a kid. My grandfather, who was like the dad in my life, he died when I was 13. And Mark and I were from Reisterstown. Yes, and so I remember I went to work and I can And I can remember that I was working on a farm, Reynolds Farm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Tom Reynolds. Of course.
Yeah. So I worked on Reynolds Farm and would bale hay and straw and cut pigs' tails off or whatever it needed to be back when I was a kid.
Gores Mill.
Yeah. And so I was walking to work and we didn't have a car. It was operational at the time. And I was walking to work and it was raining. I didn't think about the rain. I didn't think about not having a car. I was going to work.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, a friend, and I remember it's like it's yesterday. And I remember at the time, this car passes me and the horn honks, and my friend waved out the window. And it was harder than I thought it would be talking about it. But anyway, wave out the window, and it was a friend of mine and his mom. They didn't stop and pick me up. And I wasn't upset at that. In fact, the thought didn't even cross my mind. But I said, I'm going to have a car one day.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a whole lot of trucks in my career. And I went through a time and a period where I would never be stranded. Because I built a business that if I broke down on the side of the road, somebody would be there within 15 minutes to pick me up. And we'd have dealt with the truck later or the car later. But the point is that, again, this is very uncharacteristic of me to talk about this, but I feel that we are in a place right now where, unity is important and that we deal with these things head on. And we stop pointing fingers, we stop blaming people, and we get down to basics of relationships,
accountability,
and accountability and love. So anyway, I just
and
wanted
also humanity. That
I can't believe how hard that was.
I love that. But
Todd,
humanity.
Funny thing. Yeah, go. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good. It's just easy for anybody to see us and out here running and hustling, and these guys don't have any worries whatsoever in the world. Let me tell you something. I've been high and I've been low, and in the depths of my low, and I will still today. And I know this sounds crazy, but when I get to that end of the loaf of a bread, and I hate the heel. I mean, with all my passion, I hate the heel. But if that heel's there at the end of that loaf, I'm eating it. And you know why? Because there was a time when I walked away from life, that was not the only thing I had to eat, but it was right there that there was nothing else. And that was the piece of bread that I ate. And still to this day, and I will always, going forward, eat that heel of that loaf of bread, because it just resonates in my soul that, you know, not everything's guaranteed. And I'm out here like the next guy. And that's why I fight for my clients. And I'm not being salesy, but working with my clients or working with the guys on my team or being, you know, now with Sachs Realty and fighting for it, because every single day it's a gift. And I got to go out there every single day and provide for my family, because nobody's going to give it to me. And that work ethic and showing up and being grateful and eating that heel of that bread, of which I hate, I still do to that day. And I'll bring it in. And even my guys and the people that I work with on my team, they know that I eat that heel, because it's in my soul. It's in the fabric of who I am, to be real and not take things for granted.
Good
and that
stuff,
you got to
man.
get up the same way
Real
every
quick,
single
when
day.
I was 13, I worked on Kickline's farm, picking corn in the morning, going to the stand and selling we went and picked the corn, Moore Township, Pennsylvania. They pick us up 4 a.m. We go pick the corn, a big truck, come back to the fruit stand. They would bring all the fruit from the Amish. They would get at the auctions in Lancaster. And then we would work on the fruit stand all day. They gave us $15 an hour. I mean, it was huge money. And that's college money. That's how I was a kid. I was 13,
that's big
14.
money back
I
then.
don't even know how much I made, but it was really when I started out.
They gave us cash every day, man. I'll never forget that.
I was Captain Harvey's, $3.75 an hour, and I was tickled pink.
Captain Harvey.
We did all the work for them, man. Me and a couple of my cousins, and they were just like, they took care of us. It was like a godsend, because we couldn't have made that money, and I gave that money, almost all of it, to my mom, and the rest for college. You know, so.
Hey, before and man, this is good stuff, man. You guys are just good guys. And guys, we thank you for listening to us. I know this has nothing to do with real estate, but it has everything to do with maybe what we need to be hearing and saying. So thank you guys for stepping up with that. Joe, let's take a look at our poll, because I don't want to forget about it. Sometimes I do, but we have a poll out there. I don't know if you have if you voted yet, but if we could pull that up and take a look. So the question was, there we go, 564 votes. Maybe we can get that up, cruise on over and vote, because I want to see if the numbers stay the same. But when should you buy a home? And this is the biggest question. And Danielle DiMartino Booth and I today, we were talking about this, because she dislikes agents. And I don't. Look,
I don't blame her.
I don't think this should. Look, I hope she doesn't dislike me, but we're talking about, we have, in many ways, I feel like we haven't really, given people a whole lot of
We
reason.
gotta get better.
Yeah,
We gotta get better.
Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. There's a difference between agents and professionals. There's a difference, and I got to tell you, I can give you 100 examples of things I deal with every day. There's a difference. What we bring to the table with the average agent, that's why 86% fail. They're in it. They're watching HGTV. They think it's easy. They think they're going to make some money, right? It's not like that. It's a lot of work. It's struggle, and you build relationships. Every client I have becomes a friend. Becomes a trusted friend, because I advise them right. I don't bullshit them. I tell them the truth. And these other agents, I see how they talk to people. They don't even show up half the time, and I don't like agents either. Never did. Even when I was in finance, I didn't, and we talked about that before. Remember, like the first video we did, we talked about that. And how you were in your class. Remember, you said you were in your class and you're the guy that stood up and said, I'm doing this because I can't trust any agents and I'm a builder, So we talked about that. And it's just like,
That was years ago.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
I know.
Nothing's changed. And this whole thing now, when they all go, I'll be okay with it. But it's like everything else.
Well, let's take a look at this poll. So
Right,
when you should buy a home. Option 1 here is once active days on market exceeds 30 days. And then the next one here at 12% is after 2 price drops. And thirdly, mortgage payment and is less than home rental rates. And then, of course, all the above. So it's kind of, Mark, why don't you share your opinion on these? And guys, maybe you can, if you haven't voted, cruise on over and see.
I mean, as far as the
changes.
active days on market, most buyers are not going to be in touch with that. I mean, some will, some won't. Looking at what is it, the 2 price drops again. I don't know. You know, one thing, because I have a video coming out on a YouTube channel. I'll plug it. Mortgage, Maryland housing market next week, and it's talking about that clever report. 93% of the buyers out there having regrets over their purchase price, and a lot of it. And one of the main points was that buyers don't take the time to slow down and do their research too. So those first 2 points, I think they're totally missing that. That's not even something that they're engaged in looking at. I don't even think the agents are talking about that. Although a lot of times when I'm working with my buyers, one of the first things that we're looking at walking in that door is how long that house has been on the market, because that is an advantage us if it's been out there more than 15 days, more than 10 days, because that house is not moving. So a lot of buyers aren't in touch with that. What were the other points? The last point, as far as the mortgage payment and also the. Pull that back up, Joe.
Yeah, so it's, you know, the
mortgage
big one
payment,
that seemed the
rental
most popular, other than all the above, was when the mortgage payment is less than the rental rate would be on
okay.
that house.
Gotcha.
And that's a good metric, I think. I like that metric. I think if we get back to
guys,
that.
that's what it is. You know,
Yeah.
like we were talking last time, you know, when I did the study, Jacksonville, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Naples, and the houses were $750 to $1,500 cheaper to rent than buy. When I deal with a client, the first thing I do is that calculation, because the thing is, what if they lose their job and can't pay the mortgage? They got to rent it out, right? They got to rent it out. They got to cover that so their credit doesn't get ruined. They don't lose it. Right?
Oh, that's strong.
That's the most important thing that you look at when you're showing somebody a house. Like that for
100%.
me,
right?
Because I'm conservative with that. Okay, here you are. Here's what you're spending. God forbid you lose your job tomorrow. What do you do?
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The price drops are good.
Can't do it now. If you bought in the last 4 years.
Well, yeah,
you can't do that.
That's exactly. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But and then the other 2 are good. I mean, they're good parameters. But listen, a house can be on the market 5 days. You can get a good deal. I mean, that's not so much. But all of the above. I mean, all of the above for sure. But the most important one to me is that look, something bad happens. You lose a job. You got to pay for your house. How are you going to do it? You got to at least break even.
Yep.
That's the most important.
So with this, let me say this too. These buyers right now, I mean, going back to sellers are scared. Sellers are, I mean, here they're delusional, but they got a lot of nervous. They're nervous right now. When the buy side, I'm a chameleon, I'm changing to the buy side. The buyers, come on now, get back from vacation. Let's go. Because these sellers are absolutely negotiating. Closing costs all day long, price decreases all day long. So these buyers, you know, you've been waiting for this buyer's market. Not saying it is, but it sure is coming.
Yeah. Joe, let's take some questions. All right, here we go. Why don't you ever talk about D.R. Horton buyer incentives?
Is that from Lisa?
Right. No, it doesn't look like Lisa. It's
they do have some strong incentives.
Yeah, so I guess 2 things. I don't like to endorse or not endorse home builders. I think that most of the product's junk out there today. I'm not picking on one builder or the other. Somebody that has built houses. I've been going back and forth with the idea of whether I should start building houses again. And I sort of kind of, I don't know. Every time I think I want to do it, I wake up and think, what the hell's the matter with you? Life is so simple right now. Why do you want to do this? The rest, deal with the contractors and so forth today, because I'm a lot OCD, and I think that there's a correct way of building things, and that's the way you do it. And the products are junk that you buy from the supply houses. I mean, the sheathing, the exterior sheathing, you can God forbid you miss the stud, and it throws the nail completely to the other side and through the other side of the room if it's not depending on how far away the other wall is, and it's crazy. I mean, it's just and you have a hole in the in the sheathing. So I think a lot of the products are junk. The workmanship's junk. We're not teaching people how to do it. We have a lot of unskilled labor out there that's putting this crap together. So when I'm walking through this new construction, automatically I got a problem. And and when you're paying $500,000 for a box of nothing, like a horribly built home, and then when summertime hits and it's 15 degrees cooler upstairs where you're sleeping, a third of your life.
Never experienced
right?
that.
Right. So, because the duct work is terrible and there's no returns in the bedrooms because they don't have to be. And here in Maryland and Baltimore County, we just experienced this, a new home construction. And first thing I did is I walked up and I go, man, where are the returns? You don't even have a pass through cut out over top the bedroom doors. And the sales rep said to me, well, we don't need to do that in Baltimore County. I'm like, what the hell is it going to cost?
What
A
does that
couple
matter?
$100? I'm not talking about putting returns in the rooms. I'm talking about cutting holes
just the
over
ventilation.
top the door and putting two cheap,
Yeah.
grates over each side of the room and the drywall so that it sucks the air into, the return. And that's going to be a poor job not having the return. So, I mean, these are the things and people are paying dearly for this product. Okay.
Premium.
So
Premium.
so let's talk about, D.R. Horton or any other home builder for that matter. What happens with home builders, and this is the big thing right now, right? Because a home builder has to sell their home product. An existing homeowner that has a 2.74% 30-year fixed rate mortgage that doesn't have to move is not incentivized to do so unless they're hearing that or seeing that prices are dropping and they're planning on moving in 2 or 3 years. Look, if you're not planning on selling your house for the next 10 or 15 years, don't sell your house. Keep it. Right? I'm talking about are people that want to move in the next couple of years. You better consider doing it now because we've seen all-time highs. It ain't going higher.
Nope.
All right? No time soon. Affordability is not there. Wake up. Okay, when we see the slowdown like we're seeing right now, when we start seeing incentives from, home builders where they're giving rate buy downs and they're paying $40,000, $50,000. I mean, fortunately for companies like D.R. Horton, I mean, they have mortgage companies where they can take these hits. So they're
And the title,
they're
they make the money in the title too.
and they're massaging and but I will tell you about D.R. Horton, okay? And I don't dislike this because as someone that has built houses before, it's a very stressful time if you are homeowners building a house like a spec house, or not a spec house, but a custom house on your lot. Or, you pick a house, you go through and you say, I want this faucet, this door handle, these appliances, these moldings, and you're picking everything out, right? Because what happens is there's a lot of decisions to make, and usually people argue, they fight, they divorce, they overspend, they hate the builder, they go through this whole thing. Well, what D.R. Horton does well, which I do like, is they build spec housing. So they build it, they pick the plan, they pick the color cabinets, they pick the color flooring. You choose nothing.
Oh, nothing? I thought they had limited options.
Nothing.
Nothing.
You buy the house like it is. That's what you get, and you can change it later. And that's how I build houses. And I like that because it makes it very easy for the homeowner. They don't have to stress over things that don't matter. Doesn't matter what kind of doorknob you have, right? You think that it does. It doesn't matter what kind of faucet you have. You're splitting hairs over a $400 faucet or a $600 faucet. At the end of the day, you don't even look at the damn faucet. As long as it works and turns on and squirts off your dishes and washes your hands, you're happy. But when you have the choice to choose, it's very stressful. So, I do like that they offer that. And then many other home builders, they do it, where it's semi-custom, where they'll let you pick colors like Mark said, or let you pick the floor color, or say, okay, like Ryan, they do, all right, so do you want the study to have carpeting, or do you want to pay $15,000? I'm kidding, for a little bit of flooring, and what I tell people is buy the bare minimum of the new home construction. Buy the absolute bare minimum, bare bones. Don't even finish the basement. And just do it yourself. Hire your own people. You'll save a lot of money. Build it out as you need it. People think they got to have it right now. Build the sunroom addition later. Build the covered deck later. Get into the house. Make the upgrade yourself. Go with the bare bones house. Unless you have the money, then do whatever the heck you want. And, build your custom home and, pay $3,000 a square foot if you want to, if you have the money. But that's, but as far as, it's a good comment. A lot of the home builders, not just D.R. Horton, are offering incentive programs out there. They have inventory to sell. A lot of them have quick delivery. A lot of them have contracts that have fallen through where people have bought the home, had remorse, lost their financing, whatever. and those homes are there and available. The problem with the new home construction is they're very creative in how they do the price reductions. And what they would rather do is give you upgrades, because it really upsets the apple cart when your neighbor just paid full price 3 months ago, and now you get a $50,000 rebate on the house because they need the sale. So they're very slow to reduce. What I have seen builders do, and I know several builders that did this through the GFC, was they were in these major subdivisions, which, by the way, in Maryland is anything more than 3 lots is considered a major subdivision. Takes a lot longer to get it approved. There's a lot more infrastructure, yada, yada. But when I'm talking about major subdivisions, I'm talking about builders that I know that have, 100 lots, 140 lots, 160 lots, things like that. During the GFC, what they did, and this is a clear indicator, is they started selling houses for rent to investors at discounts. They didn't have to worry about dealing with the neighbor getting mad, other than they're putting a tenant in there, and some neighbors don't like that. But it's a wholesale transaction, and so they can discount it that way, or they just simply sell the lot to another builder. And then sometimes the HOA will have some kind of design charrette, restrictions or guidelines where, hey, the builder has to, hey, you're buying this lot from this big builder, this national builder. And sometimes national builders buy scattered lots from other national builders. But they have to build a consistent product that, is within the whole community. But that's another way that they ditch inventory kind of quietly without, upsetting the apple cart.
A quick thing about the incentives, you're better off getting the price discount, but you can't, because they want to get the incentives because they want to hold the price up so they can continue selling at a higher price. But in the long run, on the mortgage and as a buyer, you're better off getting the discount. But
I'd take a 5.5, 30-year fixed rate mortgage right now as a buy down incentive from a builder. And if I was going to stay there, if I was thinking about staying there for the next 10, 15, 20 years, I'd take that 5.5% buy down if they're offering it. And I would build as limited as possible, like I said, and I would finish stuff out myself. And and here's the thing I want to tell people too, because this is really important: pick the premium lots. Pick the premium lots. What happens is a lot of times they'll sell you the worst lot in the neighborhood. They'll discount that, and you take the bait because you're like, well, I can hear the tractor trailer trucks roaring down. It sounds like they're coming through my front door, and one of the things I saved a buyer was they were going to buy this one end unit, and there was a whole row of parking on the end unit. I'm like, you're going to have lights all through the night as these residents are pulling in. It was on the turn, so that every time somebody drove in this hundreds of homes, this community, it was the beginning of the community. Next to they're going to see lights, they're going to hear car doors banging, people talking, things like that. I'm like, you have to pick the best lot. It's like it's like buying a car. If you're going to buy a car, buy one that has resale value. Don't buy, something that's going to fall apart and, when you go to sell it or trade it in. What else we got? Let's take a couple more questions.
Come on, let's go.
All right. You said it was after your bedtime.
That did not. That was
I asked you if you were going to
said that. I didn't say that. That wasn't me. I get along.
Bill, you don't sleep, so I know I'm not worried about you.
Me, I take naps.
That's right.
Oh, you're like
cat naps.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not drinking that Celsius though, but I'm good.
All right, here you go. Will you give a structural justification of why you think this is a buyer's market? What metrics are driving that? Well, I think, Chris, that we did a very good job of that early on. We can pull the charts up again if you'd like to see that. But what drives the buyer's market is a rise in inventory and price reductions, and sellers getting desperate to sell their house. This is just the beginning.
It is just the beginning. We're not at a supply standpoint where,
but
it's say it's. I would agree with that.
It's a lot bigger than it was.
It's a shift. This 100%. This is a shift taking place right now.
Yep. So, and again, some markets would be slower to see than others. But do the test. Go to Zillow.
I wonder what metrics he's asking for. I wonder what metrics he's asking. Like, what's he referring to?
Well, when you see median price drops in markets, and you see price reductions, and then you see home inspections being performed, which weren't home inspections before, so buyers are being allotted the opportunity for home inspections, and they're negotiating repairs. I mean, that's certainly a trend in the right direction for buyers, where they were completely screwed by not being able to ask for a home inspection so that they knew what at least they were buying, afforded the opportunity to see what they would have to spend in money over the next 5 or so years, or 12 months for that matter.
That's a regret. That's an absolute regret.
That's a
On the part of buyers over the past 24, 48 months. Come on.
100%.
Please. All day long.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris, I mean, the metrics, look, all you have to do now is Google search housing market news, and you're going to see a lot of articles where a lot of economists and analysts have changed their tune. And, it's the trend has started. And the best thing that we can do is make sure that we're not spending more than what we can afford, so that we don't see a huge disaster with foreclosures. We have to be forward looking. And I'm not saying that, prime real estate, with people that have don't have affordability issues, a very small percentage of America that, that you can just overpay for products and not care about it. There are certain people that are like, I don't care. I want it. It's the view. It's the neighborhood. It's perfect. And I don't care if I'm spending $100,000 more than it's worth. I can afford it and I want it. And you know what? Then have it. Have it.
There's always going to be that element. There's always going to be an element of people that are going to buy. I mean, look, 5% of people, 10% of people, they're going to be fine no matter what happens. Right? That it's just going to be that way.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
more,
look,
20%, But you know what I mean? We're talking about the bulk of people, and that's where you have to look, because that's going to affect everything. That's the mass, right? So why is no basement in Florida?
Guys, look at active listings. If you live in Dallas, if you live in Fort Worth, if you live in Houston, if you live in Florida, I can just go on and on and on. Look at the explosion of inventory numbers and homes for sale. And a lot of these homes are now being priced at pre-22 levels.
Yeah.
Now, you could sit there and say, and I agree with you, that ain't nothing yet. All right? I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I think some economists think we'll get back to 2012 numbers. I see one of these comments, when will we get back to 2009? Joe, I saw that you had flashed that, there you go. Do you think, Todd, what do you eventually expect for the housing market to settle down to 2009 pricing? I don't know that it'd get that low. That was some of the lowest inventory. I was buying houses to tear down for $50,000 that are now selling for $500,000. Okay. I don't think that these houses are going to go down, 95%. But let's go back to the other question for Phil, because that was a very interesting question, because a lot of people don't even know what the heck basements are. I mentioned basements. They're like, huh? What's a basement?
Basement? Oh, the lower level.
Huh?
The lower level.
Basement?
Lower level.
Bomb shelter?
When you dig down about 3 or 4 feet, you
all out shelter.
The total square footage.
So when you go to somebody's house and they got sandbags around the outside of the house and the windows, you're like, what are you planning for?
Right, exactly.
Anyway,
Jesus.
No,
I'm kidding, kind of.
When you dig down 3-4 feet, you hit water. The water table's there in a lot of areas, so you can't put a basement. It's just the water's there. So throughout Florida, I mean, it's just you're not above sea level enough to dig down and put a basement. You'd be flooded.
So they're on a slab.
Yeah, you have some places have crawl spaces depending on where you are. You have like a little crawl space, but like here outside my office, when I put the fence around the property, I would dig down to put the fence posts in, and I'd hit water.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, and some just can't have them because of the clay soils too. I know in Texas they don't have basements, and because they have foundation problems in Texas. Yeah. And I know if you're buying a house in Texas, you really need to be mindful of that, because I know people that have called me and shared their experiences, and I know people that are brokers and agents in Texas. And Texas is one of those kind of things where you have to irrigate your soil. because if it dries out, it really shifts. This clay soil shifts, and the slabs break, and it really you have foundation problems. So I was told, I mean, here in Maryland, we could talk about wood destroying insects like termites, and people get all bent out of shape. They'll be like, "Oh, I got termites in my house." I'm like, relax. I mean, you have three types of houses. You have houses that had termites, or will have termites. It's a fact of life. And I don't care if you put mulch around your house or not, like the bug people tell you not to. It's just the way it is. In Texas, in parts of Texas, I don't know if it's the whole state, but there are three kinds of houses. Ones that have foundation problems, ones that had foundation problems, and ones that will have foundation problems. And what they cleverly do a lot of times, that I've even seen pictures of from Texas home buyers, is where they put, they just cover the wall with like some kind of a wall board. Sometimes it's even rough. It's not smooth like we like to finish them here in Maryland. It's a textured wall, and sure enough, there's a foundation problem, and you take that board off, and you can see the cracks going straight up, from the floor to ceiling. So, so basements there are a lot of states that don't. I don't think Tennessee has much in basements. All right. So should I tell my realtor I want to look for assumable mortgages? So Phil, you want to take this away, because there's a caveat to this.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you what that is. Assumable mortgages, you should. Now, if it's a FHA mortgage that's assumable, you're okay. That's just a simple process. Now, when it's a VA mortgage, if you're not a VA borrower, you're still able to assume it. However, the seller will not regain 100% of their VA benefit until the mortgage is paid off.
That's true.
So that's your caveat. Now, if you're VA, you're great. If you're not, you want to look more towards the FHA. Now, you can also look at the ones that are VA, depending if that owner is not buying a new home, right? So maybe they're selling it and not buying another home, or not planning to. I had a person that was doing that. They had a 2.99% mortgage. We closed it here about 3 months ago. She wasn't worried about it because she was retired. She's retired. She was moving somewhere with family back to Georgia, I believe. And she wasn't buying another home. So she was okay with it. So the person buying it bought the home at 2.99%, saved $1,140 a month for 30 years. Or it was like 28 years left on it. They put $100,000 down, and that was it. Now, the other thing you have to know too is you will have to put money down.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You're only going to get the amount that the loan is for. So if they have 50,000 equity, 100,000 equity, you have to pay the difference and your closing costs. So if you don't have the cash to put down in that situation, it may not be attractive enough for you. If it's a newer loan and it's 3% down and 2-3 years old, if it's an FHA or something like that, it still could work. But if it just depends, each deal is different, and it matters, on the scenario you're in. In Florida, we have a lot of people coming, they're selling outside of Florida, they're cashing out, they're either buying cash or coming down with a couple $100,000. So you have somebody that wants to buy cash, and they see they can get a 3%, 4% mortgage. They're like, hold on a second, let me throw $100,000 down, keep the cash, put it in 5% in treasuries. And instead of putting it all into the house, they reinvest it, they make more money. And now they got a house at 3-4% when they were going to spend all the cash. So it depends on the situation you're in, how much you're planning to put down, and the property. It comes down to that.
So, and I'm going to tell you guys this too, because I just closed a VA loan today, and it was an off-market deal. So
Nice.
Good for the buyers and the sellers. Good for them. We were able to save a lot of money for everyone involved in a transaction. But anyway, there was a hefty fee from the lender too. It was not a
funding fee,
huh?
VA funding.
There's a funding fee. Yeah,
it's a funding fee. Yeah,
Ooh, that was costly.
There's a funding fee.
Whammo.
Oh, it's a guarantee, baby. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here's the other thing is
But
that you guys
the
have to
thing is,
keep,
though, you got to think about that, though. There's a big funding fee, but they're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars
if they keep the house forever.
if they keep
I mean,
the
you
house.
got to look at. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to look at. Now we're starting to get down into. The sixes, and you can get in the low sixes. So you have to think, okay, I'm going to get a 5 1/4 or a 4 5/8, and you have to look at it and say, okay, well, what's the difference for me getting rid of all my cash? Because
Absolutely.
now I got to put $200,000 down or $300,000 down. Most buyers can't take advantage of that. So a lot of these products that are out there, that they say, hey, we're here to help, and you look at it and you go, okay, but who can take advantage of that?
The
Not
biggest
very
hurdle
many.
is cash. The biggest hurdle.
Hurdles
making up
cash.
that difference between the VA loan and the purchase.
It's
price.
easy for move up buyers and ones that have equity or sold their houses with equity, but it's
Absolutely.
terrible for first time buyers
difficult.
unless they are
They don't have
big
the money.
savers.
Yeah,
All right, let's
absolutely.
go ahead. Let's take the next question. Good question.
That's a good question.
Would you recommend selling now even at a 50,000 loss? All right, so Lauren, I don't know a lot about your situation here, but here's the deal. I'm getting the vibe that you recently purchased, and if this is the case, let's talk about it because it's a great question. You're not alone if that's the truth of where you are right now. We're getting a lot of calls from people that don't have the $50,000 loss. Now, how do you absorb that? If it's a short sale where it's $50,000 less than your loan, there could be even further implications for you financially, ruining your credit, doing things like that. So that has to be taken into consideration, weighed on. But if you put down the excess cash and you're looking at a situation where you could sell now, but you would lose 50 grand, but you're still coming out clean. You've paid off your mortgage. You're not damaging your credit. So I would look heavily and weigh in on that first. And then I would consider, why do you want to move? So if it's a job relocation or something like that, and you can absorb that 50 grand in a couple of years, it may be worth doing. If you're just don't want the house, that's a tough call. But if you want to send me an email and give me a little bit more information on your situation, Joe, you can put my email up there. Send me an email, identify your question in the subject line so that I can. I mean, I get inundated with emails, but I try and get through them. Sometimes it takes me a week or so to get back to people. But literally, I have 700 emails in my inbox right now, and that's not an exaggeration. So, I mean, I love, the opportunity. It tells me that people really do need help out there. It tells me that this is a big topic, because it is affecting so many people's lives. People want to own homes. They want a sense of a community. They want to feel like they belong. But the problem is that when they make bad decisions or irrational decisions, or they're pushed, or they get into fear of missing out, or they let the exuberance take a hold, it really affects them. And I want to tell you that it doesn't matter. I think everybody that has, been successful in some way or another has gone through some kind of a downturn or financial hardship. We learn from it. It's not going to ruin your life. If, depending on how old you are, if you're a young person, and you have a good job and you're valuable, your work is valuable, you're going to absorb something like that, a $50,000 loss, pretty quickly, and you're going to keep getting up and you're just going to keep going, right? If you're looking at a situation where I can lose 50 grand a day, or within the next 6 months, I got to replace the HVAC at $25,000. I got to put a new roof on because I didn't get a home inspection, and now it's starting to, leak. And that's going to be $40,000 or $50,000. You would have to weigh those odds, or those situations, so that we can look at, what is the loss. If you're losing 50,000 today because it is, very eminent that regardless of price drops, you're going to end up sinking a lot of money into this house that's not going to be worth it when you're done, then because it's not constructive returns, there are things you could do to a house to make it more valuable. But without knowing all the information, send me an email. I'd love to, see if I can advise you a little bit.
Take into account if the market still comes down a little, they may have to wait a pretty long time to recoup. So
yeah, and I think, and Phil, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people think that it's going to crash tomorrow.
Yeah,
All right. Real estate is a very slow moving trend. All right. This is not, we're not going to wake up tomorrow and houses are going to be, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 less than they are today. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a washout. But the point is that since the peak in 2022, we are seeing it pick up speed. All right. We're seeing where the cracks are showing up. We're seeing that what the data showed is a lagging effect, but we are seeing that we are going in that trend line, and this is not going to be a trend that's going to improve. It's going to get worse, because in order for it to prove, there is an element here that we all have to face reality. We would have to miraculously be out of consumer debt, and we would have to make a lot more money than what we do right now. So you add those two metrics up alone, you've got baby boomers that are sitting on the most wealth ever. All right. And here's the scenario. These baby boomers are sitting on all the equity. When we hear about the equity in America, we're not talking about the 25 million home buyers that went into the most debt they ever could possibly go into from 2020 to 2023, 24 by paying at the all-time high of the market, right? We're talking about baby boomers that have been in their houses that are sitting on high equity. They've got very low 30 percent loan to value ratios or less. Sellers that have no loan, no mortgage on their house, all right, they're the ones that are going to take the biggest haircuts. The millennials are going to come out ahead in this one. I hate to tell you, but I believe that. And I don't hate to tell you, but I just, for the people that think, the millennials that think, you've been shit on by, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, I think you're going to come out great in all this. Yeah, I think our Gen Zs are going to do even better than the millennials, and the alphas coming up are going to have the time of their life, because we're going to build the best entrepreneur, small businesses in America as this thing corrects. I believe that we're going to see more opportunity on the other side of this. We're resilient. But for the baby boomers, they're going to take the biggest whack. The silent generation they're really having it bad right now, because a lot of these folks didn't save money. They didn't invest right. Their houses are only investment. They've taken reverse mortgages. The equity's gone. They're in, retirement communities or old age facilities. They're going to take that house. A lot of them are just going to take them from them because they need it for their care, and that's what they do because of our Medicare and Medicaid system. And so now we're looking at the baby boomers, 30 million approximately in population in the United States that are coming on the retirement age, that are living in houses, that are watching their wealth being depleted because they don't want to continue to work. The stock market's going to decline, and then you're looking at, okay, their equity in their house, they have to repair it. So they don't want to do that. They don't want to waste their money. They want to be protective. They want to, conserve. So now you're looking at them spending higher insurance premiums, higher maintenance and repair costs, and they're getting whacked. And so with taxes, finally, if you look at their tax bill, it's gone up over the last 30 years exponentially, regardless of the homestead tax credit. So now the baby boomers are looking at it going, we got 30 million houses here, guys. What are we going to do? We want to retire, right? That's inevitable. So what's going to happen? They're going to lose their equity. That's going to be the one that takes the biggest hit here, because the correction is going to hurt them the most. It's not going to hurt the one that bought at the top of the market if they don't have to sell. But for the ones that waited and didn't buy yet, I think there's going to be opportunities.
So, it's wild real quick. Let me interject real quick. The baby boomers control 38% of all houses out there.
Yeah,
38% of houses. How about second homes? 56%.
Single family houses.
Yeah.
Single family houses.
56% for second homes. They control
detached
56.
single family houses.
Right. That's unbelievable.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. And there's the average age of a baby boomer now is 65 years old.
Do you think they're going to end up selling those or just passing them down to the kids? Like, do you think
the kids can't afford them?
They can't, right. They can't afford to hold them, right?
And who's going to pay for their care for the next 30 years?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. You're right.
I mean,
You're right.
the kids, that's what everybody doesn't get.
Yeah, you're right.
They
You're
think
absolutely right.
think that these baby boomers are loaded, millions of dollars in the bank, and that's not true.
Yeah, you're right.
A lot of these
It's
baby
in
boomers,
equity.
their equity it's their wealth is in the equity of their home.
Yep.
So now we're going to drop this 4,000, 5,000 square foot house, 3,750. We're going to drop this house to the kids, and the kids are like, "How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
How are we
Yep.
going to afford the insurance? How are we going to, afford the repairs? We can't afford this. We're living paycheck to paycheck."
Golden handcuffs.
So
They're
it's
afraid to make decisions.
So we've got to be, guys. We have to
Yeah.
before we spout off with some comment about thinking that things won't happen this way. Look at the facts. Look
Reality,
at the
man.
data. What is the reality to this? What's the magic? What is it? What who's waving the wand? What all the government's doing right now is printing entitlements. Okay, I can forgive your student debt, but does that mean that
crazy.
you can afford a $50,000 HVAC system
That's
in your
insane.
parents' house that need the money because they need it to live the rest of their life? I mean, they're going to expect to live another 30 years, a lot of them. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to give the kids all of their money, maybe when they pass, but they got to.
They're not going to have enough to get there.
This is asinine.
They're not gonna have enough to get
When
there.
we talk about some of these things, it really just blows me away. That we can really be that naive to think that this thing's just going to continue. Now, are we going to be all right? Of course we will. I don't see.
Find a way. You
People
find a way.
say, "Look, I don't buy into the fact. I'm not 100% sold on the fact we're going to see this. U.S. is going to be the world's reserve currency." I mean, I interview enough people that believe that.
don't
Do
think
I
it's gonna be.
personally believe that? No, I really don't. I don't think that we're going to wake up one day and be trading in bricks or the yuan or what. I just don't.
It's not going to happen one day.
The
They're
government's
just- they're just-
powerful, man. The
They're
U.S.
just
is
chiseling.
a powerhouse.
Absolutely. They're just chiseling away. Away.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's a powerhouse.
God bless
And
America.
look, and let me tell you something. Here's a good one for you. How do the financial markets, the stock markets, the security markets, what do they trade in?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What do they trade in?
Dollars.
Dollars, U.S. dollars.
Dollars.
Not Canadian dollars, because that's dollars too.
Yeah.
They trade in
Yeah,
U.S.
US
dollars. The world is invested in our securities. You think that's gonna come on, man? We're gonna see what's gonna happen. Is the problem is that too many people are living with their heads buried in the sand, and they expect, because we've propped it up, they expect that we're just going to continue the bailouts. One day, I hate to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and it may be sooner than later, we're going to have to face the music and deal with the crap that's been dealt. And I believe firmly that we're going to see, this wealth absorption, in our baby boomers. And I think the millennials are going to be really pissed off until they realize that they just need to take opportunities as they get them, because they're going to be like, man, I thought I was getting all this money from mom and dad. And they're going to be like, hey, I'm sorry, mom and dad's still living, and got 30 more years, and they're going to be spending money to live. And it ain't getting cheaper. Healthcare for them is not going to be cheap. It's not going to be. And if you think you're living off of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, you are
No way.
very
With groceries up,
Mistaken.
30%?
If you cover your groceries
Very-
and utilities, you're lucky.
You know what's interesting? We talk about
Crazy.
groceries. Have you ever read the labels lately of the genetically modified products that are in this crap?
Oh, hell.
won't buy 'em.
What's in that?
Look, don't worry about my Celsius, all right? I should be looking at my Celsius.
hell
This
is that?
an energy drink. It's fruity. It's healthy, right? I don't get any money from. I don't get any money from. Look, don't give
You
me
say
a
it's
hard
healthy?
Yeah, of course.
No.
Look at product ingredients. Google product ingredients, and
Liquid
and
nitrogen's
they
what
got
it is.
They got like nanoparticles now. I mean, we're glowing in the dark
that?
at night, and this doesn't. But certain beverages do. You can Google it.
I Googled it. I believe you.
Yeah,
You are, let me say this. You are 100% a man of integrity. That is the absolute truth.
Well,
You
thank
are.
you.
You are. You're a man of integrity. I mean,
appreciate
people
it.
watching, I'm going to digress on this, but, we get into these discussions about the housing market and all this other financial information. And a lot of people, a lot of colleagues think that it's all doom and gloom, but this is truth. This is a man I've been working with for the last 60, 90 days. This is a gentleman of integrity, and I can say that truthfully. And it's true. You are a man of integrity, and the information you're putting out. And if everything was positive,
what you see is what you get. That's
black and white, good old Reisterstown, baby. You know, Baltimore.
You like it or you don't.
Love
man.
my
I'm not
Baltimore,
gonna,
but it's true though. I mean,
this is how I am on Monday
you're
morning.
You're giving the information. If everything was positive and all rosy, you would give it that way. But this is, people need to know authenticity. You got that. They need to know the truth. You deliver that, and you bring in the other people to support that. But you also bring in other individuals to maybe to contend what you're saying. But in the same breath, you still fall back to you're doing what's right, the way your grandfather taught you. Not yes, not yes, maybe yes. Yes means yes. So I envy that, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, thanks. We have a super chat here. I appreciate that, Mark. I do. I'm tired of paying rent. I found the house where my mortgage payment will be the same as my rent. And after this comment, I want to get back to that poll before we get out of here. Would you advise someone like me to just buy? And this is a great question. And I'm going to tell you like this. If you can afford to buy and you find something that checks your boxes and you really like the place, you dig it. A lot of home ownership, if you can afford it, is all about lifestyle. When we decide that we're going to go on vacation, and you could stay either in the beachfront or you could stay on the roadside, right? Certainly a different experience. Some people say, you know what, I don't spend a whole lot of time in my room. I could care less about the beachfront. But the difference comes down to, can you afford the beachfront, even if you choose the roadside, right? And what we see are many people that make decisions that they, for lack of a better reason, they just get impatient. So, I'm going to say that and I always say this, if you can afford to be there, it checks the boxes. And that's the most important thing. If you're going to be buying at potentially the height of the market or close to the top, you want to make sure that you're buying something that checks the boxes. So yes, if it doesn't put you in a financial burden and you really like the place, go ahead and do it. Who cares? I mean, it's going to go back up. Now, Harry Dent, and by the way, a lot of people think he's nuts and crazy, and that may be true. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychoanalyst, but I will tell you one thing, that this is the second time I podcasted with him, and that man is as real as it gets. And whether you believe what he is saying or not, he has money. He's wealthy. He doesn't need to come on YouTube and do what he does. He doesn't need to subject himself to the comments. In fact, on his channel, what I noticed was he turned off his comments. This is one badass video from this man.
Oh, my God.
And I tell you what, I've had more people reach
Phenomenal.
out to me. And for the flip side of saying that he's, called for, last 69 of 2 recessions or what, I mean, look, save the effort on the keyboard. Here's the deal. All right. If you dive into Harry Dent, this is really the first time he's ever been this bearish. He's usually a bull if you really know him and dive into it. Yes, he's been talking about this for a couple of years, but nobody can underestimate when we look at indicators. And you can be the smartest, PhD, analyst, mathematician, whatever. You can look at the data, okay, the data sets, and you can see where everything, I mean, it's like the doctor. They look at everything and they go, man, you've got everything wrong with you, but you're still doing well. It doesn't make sense. It defies all the odds. It does this. But here's what we have in the housing market and the economy. We can't control the stimulus. We can't control the printing. We can't control what's being done on a entitlement side. As far as, paying off loans for people. I mean, no one guesses this stuff, right? And, and I think that eventually, regardless, there are enough people that aren't getting these entitlements that are going to say, I can't afford this anymore. And we're seeing that now with the contraction of money being spent. We're now seeing it show up in earnings reports. We can't turn our nose to the fact that these publicly traded companies, they care about their shareholders, bottom line, and earnings more than they do their employees. And we're seeing where national retailers, national companies, white collar jobs are being wiped out. So, when we're looking at these indicators, guys, this is where, so when we look at a Harry Dent that says, he says that in this lifetime we'll never see home prices back to this level again. I don't necessarily disagree. This could be something that takes decades to wash out, but it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There's going to be a slow driving train. It doesn't mean you can't find the deals now, but sellers, I'm telling you right now, this is going to continue. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball,
Buyers
but
should
I
be
can tell you
excited.
that.
Buyers should absolutely be excited, I think. Be patient. To that gentleman, be patient. Trust your instincts. Do a home inspection. 100%.
Yep.
Know what you're buying. This is an investment. And I think a lot of people get lost in understanding that this is the biggest investment you will ever make. And it's part of your portfolio, but you also can't create wealth without assets. So,
Yeah.
And
you know what? And we could all be 100% wrong. And I'll fully admit that. If in, 5 years from now, we don't experience this downturn that we've many believe that will be there, I'll be the first one to come out. You can save this clip. Save this clip to your computer. I promise you, I will be the first one that comes out and says, well, guys, I was 100% wrong. I don't think I will be, but I'll be the first one to admit it. This is basic. I don't need a PhD in economics, man, to tell you that the numbers don't work.
Numbers
and if
don't
you
lie.
are looking at your bank account and being brutally
People do.
honest with yourself, you know it too.
exactly.
It's my line.
Right on.
Yep. Here we go. We got, last time we'll look at this poll here this evening, 775 votes. And it looks like, here we have at least, almost 80%. Just over 80%, 81% believe that at least all of these apply, but certainly mortgage payment equaling your home rental rate. And what I really meant by that, just to clarify, and to our audience or our commenter that asked the question of should I buy it if it's less than my rent, what I'm really talking about is in the investment world. And Philip said this beautifully. He said, if you get into a jam and you buy a house and you don't commit mortgage fraud, don't say you're going to live there and not, because that could be bad for you. But to get that 30-year fixed rate mortgage, because despite the higher interest rates, are still cheaper than if you got a commercial loan as an investor. And when you get a commercial loan as an investor, you got to put down 25, 30% to get a rental. But what I'm talking about is in basic math for real estate investing. When I'm looking at projects in the past, historically for decades, what I'm looking at is when I am 100% in on a property. And guys, I'm talking 100% in. That means the acquisition cost of the property, closing costs, any improvements that are necessary prior to turning that property into a rental and getting a rental license, all of those costs boiled into one. Keep it simple math. If I invested everything all in, and I invested $300,000. I don't even care whether I got a loan for $299,000. But for $300,000, I'm all in on the money. If I can rent that property at the 1% rule for $3,000 a month, I'm good. And that has been the golden rule amongst real estate investors. And I've watched it come down to 60 cents, 55 cents, 40 cents. Or 0.4, not 1%. And this is where I believe that this downturn is not just going to hurt, the baby boomers with their equity. They're going to come out because they still have plenty of equity. But this is really going to be a toll on these brand new investors that did this method of, buy and repair and refinance and
The
repeat.
formula.
Right. And, when I think that, and you know what I'm talking about, if you've done this, where it's like, take it up, take all the equity out, max it out, whatever. Whenever I did rentals, and this is still today, if they're not paid off, I want to be at least 30, 35% down, where I'm really 60 to 65% loan to value, because a piece of real estate is not fungible, number one. And that means that there's no two that are exactly alike. The lots are not the same. There's something about it. You can build the same house, but there's something different. The other thing is it's not a liquid asset. So you can't just go down to this bank and say, I want my cash, right? Because what happens is when you put it on the market, you can find out nobody wants it, or at the price that you would like to get. So anyway, guys, gentlemen, thank you so much. Joe, did we miss any super chats there tonight? Making sure we got everybody. All right. Hey, I do want to thank you guys. A little different show tonight, but appreciate you
Thank you for
spending
the
the
opportunity.
Tuesday night with us.
Yeah.
Mark, thanks, man.
Yeah. Awesome.
Appreciate
Enjoyed it.
Hey, cruise on over to Mark's YouTube channel. This guy is full of life and just a great guy and a pleasure to work with on a daily basis. I tell you what, one of the things with real estate agents is most of them don't work in the office. This guy doesn't leave the office. If he's not on a property, seeing somebody or driving clients around or doing something like that, he is in, grinding, making calls. And I watch him in and out, in and out, in and out. And he's a great guy. So cruise on over, show him some love on his YouTube channel. And, we're really encouraging to spread the news about his team and this housing market. And, and Phil Simonetta, I want to just say thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Tomorrow night, real quick, little plug. We're actually starting our live podcasts, Pizza and Real Estate. We have the pizza business and we have the real estate business. So we're going to have a camera out in the pizza business, a camera in the real estate business, and some guests coming in. This is our pizza business here. It's a Neapolitan pizza. We make everything fresh here. And also we have the real estate school and the brokerage. The school, we teach the classes to get your license. We teach you to become a broker if you're an agent. And then if you work with us, we actually teach you our apprenticeship program and show you how to make money in real estate as a broker or as an agent.
Good
stuff. So that's our thing. That's what we got going on. Our next class is starting in September. I think it's September 2nd.
And Phil's also in our preferred network. We have a great network of agents that we trust. And you can go to SachsRealty.com. Obviously, guys, if you're in Maryland, we want to serve you and advise you. And we're very competent and able to do that. Give us a shot. If you're looking to buy or sell or rent, if you're a landlord looking for tenants, we do the whole spectrum, both commercial and residential. And but Phil down in Florida, that's our map on our website. You can click on a state and do a city drop down, find agents that are close to you. It's a new program for us, man. We are really slow to add people to this site because there are requirements. You have to be a full-time agent. You have to do a minimum of 12 transactions in the last 2 years. That's like bare minimum stuff. You have to have a 4.6 review across the platforms that are out there. So there are a lot of agents that want to be. We get a lot of inquiries. If you're an agent and you think you qualify, and I'm not saying that to be arrogant. I'm just saying it's factual. Look, the one thing I tell people all the time, this is Sachs Realty. It's not ABC Realty, and no knocking on Phil being Pure Real Estate or Realty because Pure 21 Realty, but this is my name. So I take it very seriously. I don't want, people to be, customer satisfaction is very high on my priority and experience. I want customers to have the best experience ever when they're dealing with the most expensive transaction in their life. So guys, we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you so much for being part of our network. And one of the biggest compliments I just want to plug, besides going over to Phil's too, he's got an amazing YouTube channel. But I do want to plug, guys, help us build the Sachs Realty community. Share us with your family and friends. One of the biggest compliments that you can do for us because we feel that we're trying every day to bring you value. So guys, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, baby. Sounds good. Good job.